Hello, and welcome back to the Michigan State University Wealth Management Association podcast. This week we have Mark Meyers and Ryan Sullivan joining us on the podcast. Listen in to the second part of this two-part series as they share about estate planning. We hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to the Michigan State University Wealth Management Association podcast. This week we have Ryan and Mark Meyers joining us once again. Last week, if you want to jump in and watch their trust services video, it was a very beneficial video. And this week, they're going to be covering estate planning with us. And I'll let you guys kind of introduce yourselves a little bit more.
Thanks, Jacob. Ryan Sullivan here. I've been with Rehmann for 23 years now. After completing my undergraduate degree in finance at Eli Broad, started in the industry focused on comprehensive financial planning typically for private households, and moved over to Rehmann as we were building out our wealth management practice around 23 years ago now. Functioned for the most part over the last 15 years or so as a lead financial advisor, and currently I'm the chief executive officer of Rehmann Capital Advisory Group.
Well, it's tough to follow that, Jacob, but I'll jump in and try anyway. So Mark Meyers, principal in our wealth management group, co-lead the ultra high net worth practice along with my partner Dave Latimer. Been with Rehmann now about 3.5 years, and proud Chippewa, graduated from Central Michigan in 2007.
Very cool. Yeah, great to meet you guys and have you on once again. And diving right into those questions, for listeners who may be early in their financial journey, what does estate planning actually involve? And why is it so important even before someone has significant wealth?
Jacob, that's a great question. We come across this often working with multi-generational families, especially entrepreneurs, younger business owners, professionals, that often may think that you don't need an estate plan or don't need to go down this path until you have significant wealth. The reality is, when you are younger, earlier in your journey, you may be married, you may have children. There's so many other components of this that are very important to make sure you're protecting not just your financial assets, but the rest of your net worth, the rest of your family as well. So it really helps you identify and define what do you want as far as taking care of both finances, but then also decision making if you're unable to, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's death, incapacity for you, for your spouse, who's watching the kids if you're not able to, if you can't make health or financial decisions, how does that work? And then it helps, a thoughtful and considerate estate plan also should be able to grow with you if you properly review and reevaluate it. But again, the misnomer is that I don't need an estate plan until I have a significant estate. The reality is, earlier in your career, in your financial life, it can be all extremely beneficial to have a thoughtful estate plan established.
Yeah. And at what point in your life do you kind of recommend people coming into their estate plans? Like for major life events happening, marriage, children, selling a business, a house, how should they look at their estate plan? And when should they really start getting one?
Well, I think a great comment there, and I'll just piggyback and let Mark fill in, is at life events. I think you hit the nail on the head, Jake. If you have life events, if it's starting in your career, you have your first job, right? If it's getting married, if it's buying a house, if it's having a family, if it's buying into a business, these are all great moments and great examples of opportunities to consider how does this impact your longer term estate plan.
Yeah, I think Ryan's saying it very well there. It's not about a point in time so much as it's about a process, and the process is somewhat ongoing. That doesn't mean that you're going to be spending X amount of minutes on this every single day, but you get your first job. Theoretically, you've got some sort of retirement plan associated with it. What's the beneficiary designation on that retirement plan? That's estate planning, right? Yeah. And that can extend on to so many different things. I'll say I didn't get really cozy with attorneys as I was going through my own estate planning until I started having kids, because there are so many parts of estate planning that don't necessarily have to do with a will, a trust, a power of attorney. Beneficiary designations is one example. Transfer on death designations is another. These are mechanisms that help you avoid probate. And until you're in those situations where you have other assets that maybe you want to have in a more directed fashion or a more private fashion, you might not need to go through a more complicated process. So I guess, if I could stress something, we don't want people to hear estate planning and recoil and think about a $3,000 bill to an attorney. It's about thinking through these items, just having clear, honest discussions, and then figuring out the best pathways to get these done, and keep it as simple as possible if you can.
Yeah. Well, I just want to point out, I'm really thankful that I was able to have you guys both cover the estate and trust planning, just because I feel like they kind of go hand in hand. So having the same viewpoint coming on these topics and covering them together, I think it is really beneficial for us and our listeners here.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. So diving into the next part of that, though, how does estate planning connect with kind of the investment and financial planning decisions throughout somebody's life?
This is also a great question and different from our prior topic on trust services, which is more of a solution than planning. Estate planning is really the broadest type of planning you may do in your financial life, right? So it really,
Mhm.
our approach typically is, and our view is, start with the plan. What are the goals? What are the values? What are the risks? What are the concerns? And then these other more narrow solutions like investment management, insurance, et cetera, they fit into the broader estate plan, right? So you're depending on your financial legacy, assets you may need for your current lifetime or the next generation. That's going to help dictate what is the investment strategy that's most appropriate for both now as well as into the future.
Yeah.
But again, estate planning is a great core for helping define what types of solutions do you need to consider. If it's trusts, if it's wills, if it's an estate management strategy that's fixed income versus equities, insurance fixed versus variable, all these different solutions or tools you might have in your toolbox fit into a proper estate plan when it's done thoroughly.
I think a lot about when it comes to this particular topic, asset location, right?
Mhm.
So we start to get to know somebody and we go through a financial planning process and we're using technology. How much does somebody need for their goals, right? They need to spend X dollars per month after tax inflation adjusted solving for that. And doing so in a way that takes into account how they're invested, how much risk they can take versus maybe they need to be a little bit more on the conservative side for their own, mental health. So
Yeah.
you do that sort of analysis and you think about what's for charity, maybe what's for kids, maybe what's for grandkids. The asset location answer really takes a lot of those considerations into account. And then it helps you identify, you know what, the time horizon for this isn't what the time horizon is for my assets.
Mhm.
Maybe this is where I take a little more risk. Maybe this is where I look to allocate some portion of the kids or grandkids' inheritance. So thinking through those items, that yields the best after-tax results. And that's a key part about what we're doing.
Yeah. Very good to know. And at this point, I think you've sold all of us on how we should involve estate planning into our maybe our customers or our current lifestyle right now. But before we do that, what are some of the key documents everyone should have in place and kind of know they need going into this?
So I'm gonna reject the premise a little bit here, Jacob. I
Yeah.
don't think there's anything that everybody all the time needs. And I don't believe that's true even across age bands or across circumstances. Your goals will make all the determinations on what the solutions are that should provide. And so what are some of the things that I think are common and appropriate for everybody to evaluate? If I can restate the question,
Hmm.
I would be looking at, as I'm getting started, those transfer on death designations, beneficiary designations, healthcare powers of attorney, financial durable power of attorney. A lot of us don't realize, or at least I didn't when I was 18, that if I was in some sort of accident, my parents don't just automatically get access to my medical records.
Hmm.
That's a thing that happens when you reach the age of majority in Michigan. A lot of people don't really take into account. And so God forbid I got into a car accident, my parents wouldn't just be able to zoom in and get access to all the things they would want to automatically. And so those are really key details, especially on the really early end of the equation that we should be thinking about. And then once you get into the marriage, the kids phase, the real estate phase, now we're going to start thinking about things like quit claim deeds. We're going to look at wills. We're going to look at maybe a trust is appropriate, depending on where you're at in that family business. If that's something you're doing or a startup, you should be considering entity formation documents. There's a ton that's out there. Um, and whether or not you're going to implement them, to me, that's not the same as talking about them. And
Yeah.
so making sure that you're equipped to have that conversation, heck, even have it with ChatGPT. Just get the ball rolling, get it started. And that way you
Yeah.
can feel equipped to have the discussion.
Yeah. And then I kind of want to point out, from what I'm understanding your guys' viewpoint, uh, a lot of the estate planning and all of this, it shouldn't just happen when you're older, even deep into your career, but once you hit 18, you can really start doing that and building that up.
Thinking about it anyway. Maybe you're not
Yeah.
footing the bill. Maybe that's mom and dad for a portion of the time, but absolutely.
All right. Very good to know. And kind of last question here for you guys on estate planning. From your experience, what are some of the most common estate planning mistakes families make? And how can working with an advisor like you guys prevent them?
So a couple of common mistakes that we see. One is delay to start, right? Or the misconception that you need to have significant complex wealth to have an estate plan, right? So that's one is delay starting or not doing it. The next would be once you've done it, it is a lot of work typically, right? So once you've done it, then there's the misconception that I'm done. I don't have to do this again, right? It's not like the most fun thing to talk about, but it's not reviewing and reevaluating if it still aligns with your current circumstance and your goals, right? And then we do work often with entrepreneurs so that own businesses, early stage, late stage, mature, second generation, first generation, everything kind of under the sun. Often we still see these entrepreneurs that don't take the time to properly update their estate plan to accommodate for the fact that they do own a business. And what would happen if something were to happen to them unexpectedly? What would happen to their family? What would happen to their business partners? That's an often a missed opportunity for some really valuable planning to make sure that both your family's taken care of, but then also the business is in a position where you have to force to sell to come up with liquidity to pay beneficiaries. So again, three distinct circumstances: delayed start, not reviewing your estate plan, and then also how do entrepreneurs treat their estate plan as part of their ongoing planning.
And in situations like that, are you generally bringing that up to your clients, or are they coming to you saying, hey, I noticed I haven't updated my estate in a while. How do we review that?
Brian, do you mind if I jump in on that one?
Please, Mark. Yeah.
All right. I will say we have a surprising number of clients who are so mindful and introspective that they are actually reaching out and they're saying, hey, I don't know anybody in this world, but I know this is a problem that I have. Somebody please help me. And because they have faith in the organization, because they work with a tremendous advisor, they just reach out in a blanket sort of way. But if you're talking about specifically on the wealth management side, I think our team just does a tremendous job of making sure that they've got sort of this ongoing list of what are the things that I should be considering for each of my clients. And it's mental checklist, or maybe it's a physical one in some cases. It guides them very well towards, let me make sure I'm bringing this up and let me make sure that we've talked about it. If it's been 2 years, no big deal. If it's been 6 months, but you just had a kid, great. They'll make sure that they're getting in front of their clients very proactively. And I've always felt like that's a great step.
Yeah, very good to hear. It sounds like you guys have very then, I guess, active clients there at Rehmann, as well as a great team that's supporting you. So, but well, Ryan, Mark, I really appreciate you guys coming on. As I said before, covering both the trust topics and the estate topics. It's a lot to handle, but you handled it great, and I really appreciate all your responses and information on these topics.
Thanks for having us,
so much.
Yeah.
Go green.
Go white. Have a good one.
Take care.
If you enjoyed this discussion, please like and share the podcast on Apple and Spotify. The WMA podcast is part of Michigan State University's Wealth Management Association, a student organization whose goal is to inspire the next generation of financial advisors. Feel free to follow us on social media at MSU WMA and check out our website at msuwma.com. Anything heard on either the MSU WMA or Spartan Journal podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice.